Hey folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris. One would have to say that throughout the course of 2020, it would be a little challenging to find me speaking well of the ruling African National Congress in South Africa or the bureaucracy, the state bureaucracy in South Africa. But here you go, ladies and gentlemen. Lightning does strike. Good news to report about the government of South Africa looking out for consumers and for the marketplace. Well, for those who think that capitalism is a system which people want no control, laissez-faire approach in which business can go about doing whatever they want, doesn't understand the mechanism of capital. Governments exist to ensure a level playing field. That's their true purpose, to protect our interests, to protect our safety, and to ensure a level playing field. That's the role. Now, famously, the African National Congress has done anything but protect a level playing field, introducing race-based policies that discriminate against minorities in South Africa, and of course having a long history of corruption going back at least 20 years that we're well aware of with multiple scandals. But in this case, I have positive things to say about the government and its job fulfilling its role, protecting the consumer and the marketplace. What am I talking about? I'm talking about competition and price gouging. Specifically, Dis-Chem this week, South Africa's second largest pharmaceutical retailer with over $2 billion annual revenue turnover, has dropped its appeal for its conviction on price gouging taking place back as the lockdown began late February and early March when it increased prices. Back in that time frame before Minister of Trade Ibrahim Patel had enacted a anti-price gouging rules and prevented firms from increasing prices by more than 10%. Before that came into effect, Dis-Chem and other suppliers increased their prices for personal protective equipment, in this case masks. Dis-Chem raised its prices for a package of 50 masks from 43 Rand 47 cents to 156 Rand 95 cents. That's a 261% increase, ladies and gentlemen. Shocking, is it not? Its other masks that they sold in Dis-Chem were raised by 43%. That's also shocking. But 261%, clearly this must be a case of a retailer taking advantage of the marketplace in a crisis. And that's what the government decided to go after Dis-Chem for. But they weren't alone. They also went after another provider, and that provider was the Baglageti clothing supplier. It makes industrial clothing for the marketplace. Baglageti Workwear and Industrial Supplies. And that company was also charged for gouging consumers. Now, the Competition Commission in April investigated this and forwarded a complaint in response to consumers complaining about having been gouged by both of these companies. They sent this forward on charging Dis-Chem and Bablageti Workwear Industrial Supplies, charging both of them with violating the Competition Act. And Bablageti, a smaller firm based in Roslyn, Pretoria, decided to pay the fine and not appeal. So they were fined 76,000 Rand back in June. Late May, early June. Now, the thing is that they can charge a company with 10% of annual turnover, so it could have been quite excessive. But Dis-Chem decided to appeal this conviction, and they've just now decided to withdraw their appeal, for which they'll be fined 1.2 million Rand. Could have been a lot worse. With 2 billion Rand, they could have had a pretty hefty fine of 200 million Rand. So they took the path of accepting the guilty plea. Now, we should talk about this because proving this is very difficult for the Competition Committee and for the tribunal. The commission and the tribunal, because the law sets a very high barrier in South Africa that you must pass a test before a company can be found charged for an excessive price. Both companies argued that the court did not meet that standard despite the conviction, and this is why Dis-Chem initially appealed this. However, events unfolding in South Africa have led them to change their position on this and withdraw their appeal. So specifically, the law requires that authorities must show that they are pricing products independently of competitors for durable periods of time, have a 35% market share, or in absence of this, have market power. In other words, they have to be a dominant player in that particular segment of the marketplace. Both actors said that they weren't. In the case of Bablageti, that's clear that they're not a dominant actor in that field. In Dis-Chem's case, it's less clear, being the number 2 pharmaceutical retailer in all of South Africa, so it's less clear that that's the case. Two companies previously charged for this were ArcelorMittal and Sasol, both of whom withstood this challenge. The thing about this is, ladies and gentlemen, is that in the entire history of this over the past few decades, every single case over the last 20 years on appeal, they've won. So the government was likely to lose this, most likely, and they were confident that Dis-Chem was confident they would win on appeal. But the negative publicity coming out of the PPE corruption scandals involving government officials is sort of glomming on to the Dis-Chem situation. And so Dis-Chem wants to distance itself from this mess and is willing to accept the fine. I think it's a very generously low fine, to be honest. But Dis-Chem says it withdrew the appeal due to bad publicity it was receiving, in which it was being compared to the personal protective equipment corruption scandal that has embroiled some politicians, as I said. In a statement, Dis-Chem said, the decision is informed by the justifiable anger at procurement abuses during the provision of PPE at taxpayers' expense that have been recently exposed, adding that its appeal has been compared to corruption scandals which could taint Dis-Chem's reputation by misplaced association. Now, Dis-Chem lawyers argued at the hearing that it had priced its mask more highly as it anticipated future prices from suppliers due to global mask shortages, and that it had chosen a lower price point than Clicks, which is the leading retailer. Well, the problem I have with that, ladies and gentlemen, is that your existing stock, you're raising prices because you're going to have to pay more later on. That's not a reasonable basis. What, are you going to save that cash to pay for the new stock? And then will you have a lower price for the new stock so you balance it out? That's not going to happen. To me, I'm pretty convinced that's price gouging. When you have stock on the shelves and you raise the prices when future things come in, or you order future things and it costs more, you raise your prices. But retailers get away with this all the time, ladies and gentlemen, but the increases are small, and competition committees don't see this. Competition commissions don't see it. Governments don't pay close enough attention to monopolistic practices. Yeah. So I disagree with their position that they, and who cares if they raise it less than Clicks? Why wasn't Clicks charged? That's the bigger question. As I said, in the past 20 years, the tribunal has lost every single case for excessive prices at the appeal court. Yeah. So the tribunal gets the conviction, then companies appeal every single case over the last 20 years they've lost. Ivan Saltzman, who's the CEO of Dis-Chem, said lawyers advised the company would have won the case on appeal. We remain confident that we neither overcharged nor broke the law. We believe that our price adjustments during March 2020 were justified given the increased costs that we were facing and our commitment to ensure stock availability. Yes. However, the company no longer wants to be associated with this. They don't want to be tainted by these corruption scandals. So we would rather move forward and focus on delivering value to consumers for the products they need, especially during the continued challenging environment, Saltzman said. And strangely enough, not. Dis-Chem shares were up 1.43% to 17 Rand 70 cents after having fallen a third so far in 2020, in part owing to the scandal. Now, there's the question of retailers taking advantage of consumers in a crisis and gouging consumers, which it seems to me that that's a pretty clear-cut case here. But whether they could prove that under existing law, I don't think they could have proven it because of the high bar. But it's clear to me that they were gouging consumers and that the government stepped in to deal with that. What's also clear to me that the government's malicious imposition of the lockdown put Dis-Chem at a great disadvantage. And I can understand why the retailer was scrambling to raise prices on the few products it was permitted to sell. Remember Dis-Chem, when people walked in and women wanted to buy makeup, beauty products, things like that, or buy other goods in the store, all of it was roped off because the government denied consumers the right to purchase these goods and only let them get essentials at these pharmaceutical retailers. You can only go to drugstores to buy the essentials, drugs and things like masks and that. But you couldn't buy the other things that are freely available on the store. You were prevented from buying them. So they backed these companies into a corner, cutting off 70 to 80% of their stock from consumers buying it and putting them at risk of collapse. Why? Because the Minister of No Trade, Ibrahim Patel, who has no concept of what a market is or how it works, only how to destroy them, decided that Dis-Chem could not sell anything except products they specifically authorized because it was unfair to other retailers. Well, this is the lunacy. So the government, while it has stepped in and taken care of South African consumers, in this case, bears responsibility as well for creating the conditions that precipitated Dis-Chem jacking up prices like that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. A rare instance of me praising the African National Congress and the state bureaucracy in South Africa for stepping in to protect consumers. If you're not a subscriber to Chris White Africa, take a second, push that subscription button right down there. And be sure to toggle the bell icon so you get notified of my updates, of my prepared videos, live streams, and special features with guests. Upcoming guests include Dr. Corné Mulder from the Freedom Front Plus in South Africa, the political party, and also Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, noted military historian, who is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. Feel free to leave any comments. If you got any questions, I'll do my best to read them all. And I ask that you smash that like button because likes drive viewership. Thanks a lot for your patronage, for your time. I do appreciate it. Have a pleasant day.